All right, it looks like everybody has come in from the waiting room, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to October's Assistive Technology Mod. This month's topic is Assistive Technology for Mental Health. My name is Angelina Alpert, and I am a research assistant at UMKC Institute for Human Development. Today, we are going to go over a couple announcements. We're going to do a quick overview of Missouri's No Wrong Door. We're going to use a planning trajectory for mental health, and we're going to learn new technology ideas for mental health. Just a quick side note, all of our mods are recorded. They get posted to the Charting the Life course YouTube, and they also get sent out in a follow-up email afterwards. So if you have to hop off at any point, you will get the recording afterwards. So Charting the Life course is having our 9th annual showcase. It's going to be April 28th through May 1st. Oh, I'm sorry, April 29th through May 1st. We have just the save the date for right now. Registration is going to be coming out soon. If you are interested in presenting, the call for presenters is open. Submissions for that are going to be due November 22nd. And then we also have our call for sponsors and exhibitors out. Less of a deadline on that one. So that can be filled out pretty much whenever. More information is on the Charting the Life course website. I will put the link in the chat once I pass things over to David, if you'd like to look more into that. But the showcase is a super cool opportunity to get to meet with others that are using Charting the Life course, either in their profession or in their life. And it's a really, really cool opportunity. And we also have the Charting the Life course Missouri chapter stakeholder meeting coming up. That's going to be November 12th. This one is going to be in person. That QR code there is the registration link. But again, I will drop the link in the chat. That's going to be in person in Kansas City at UMKC's campus. So a little bit about No Wrong Door, for those of you that are unfamiliar. The goal is to transform the way people access services in the community. So it supports individuals and caregivers to make decisions on complete and accurate information about their options, seeking long-term service and supports, regardless of age, income, or disability. We have a lot of partners with Missouri No Wrong Door, and since the goal is to have a more collaborative system, Missouri Assistive Technology, who we partner with on these mods, is one of our partners on that. And in case any of you were on the No Wrong Door stakeholder meeting that was last week, the No Wrong Door grant has technically ended. That was just a planning grant though. So No Wrong Door things will still be happening. Our partners over at Department of Health and Senior Services, DSDS, are going to be taking more of the lead on No Wrong Door. And we talked about that in our stakeholder meeting. So we will continue to have No Wrong Door stakeholder meetings and ongoing work to keep collaborating across the systems. So our Missouri Open Door series, the goal of these is to open doors to integrated supports. So this is the Charting the Life course integrated support star. So the goal of this is to focus on different types of services and supports in a person's life. And those 5 types of services and supports are personal strengths and assets, which are personal abilities, things that a person is good at, personal belongings and resources, relationships, which are family, friends, acquaintances, neighbors, anybody that can give you a hand, eligibility specific, which are needs-based services, whether that's on age, geography, income level, they are likely going to require some form of disability diagnosis, and they're going to be government services. We also have a Missouri Open Door workshop on those. That's our benefit series, and those are the second Wednesdays of every month. We also have community-based services and supports, which are places in the community that anybody would have access to. So parks, schools, groups, or membership organizations. And then technology, which is personal, assistive, adaptive, or environmental technology, which is what we talk about at the technology series. So as I mentioned with integrating those services and supports, when we look at a traditional service delivery in that center circle, if a person is relying solely on formal government services, it can sometimes unintentionally seclude them from the family and the community that they want to be a part of. So our goal is to go ahead and integrate those services and supports into a person's life. That way that they're able to live within the family and community that they choose. So I'm gonna go over some Charting the Life course resources real quick before I pass it over. So if you're unfamiliar with Charting the Life course, it is a framework and set of tools to help you think differently about your vision for a good life, set high expectations, and integrate multiple types of supports. It helps to organize your ideas, visions, and goals, as well as problem solve, navigate, and advocate for supports. So this is one of our tools. This is the trajectory for planning. If you are familiar with Charting the Life course, you'll see this trajectory looks a little bit different than usual. Some of our standard tools got a little bit of a facelift recently, so they've got a little bit of a new look to them. But the same concept is there. So with a planning trajectory, on the right-hand side, you'll want to plan out a vision for what you want. And this could be with anything. It could be for your good life in general, or it can be for a specific topic. So for today's mod, the trajectory was an example for mental health. So it'll be your vision for what you want for your mental health. And then that bottom part is going to be what you don't want. Sometimes it is easier to start with what you don't want, and then kind of use that to form your vision for what you want. And then all the way to the left are going to be past experiences. So on the top, you'll do past experiences that are supporting your vision for a good life. And on the bottom, it will be past experiences that are leading you towards what you don't want. Then, since this is a planning trajectory, we have this additional row here in the center, which is for moving forward. So the top is going to be current or future life experiences or goals that will help you support your vision for what you want. And then below it will be things to avoid in the future that will that will lead you towards what you don't want. So for a vision for what we want for our mental health, this is just one example. So this person is wanting to focus better at work, feel more comfortable interacting with new people, and reduce their anxiety. And what they don't want is to be overwhelmed, not have a way to manage their anxiety, feel like nothing is going to get easier, and losing their job because they're having a hard time focusing. So for past experiences that are going to lead towards that good life, they already are good at being able to identify the problem. They know that keeping checklists work for them. And they also know that hearing about similar experiences helps them. So that pulls in that relationship part of the star. And then past life experiences that led them towards what they don't want, not having an outlet for their anxiety, and not being able to focus at work. So moving forward, I'm not going to go too much into the current ones that'll lead us towards the vision that we do want, because these are mainly what David is going to talk about today. But the Calm app, the Mood Path app, and then as far as things that aren't or are on the lower end of technology, or not quite technically technology, but more of a adaptive, I'm sorry, an accommodation. There we go. Blanking on the word. Um, a checklist notebook, and fidgets, giving some outlet for that anxiety. And then things to avoid would be not making any changes at all. And then with that, I will go ahead and pass it over to David.
All righty. Thank you so much, Angelina, and good afternoon, everyone. It's been a while since I've done one of the mods, and so it's an honor and always a privilege to spend an hour among friends and kind of talk about some of the things that are going on in the world of assistive technology. So today we're going to look at assistive technology for mental health. And we don't often think about assistive technology in the realm of mental health, but as I've kind of done some research over the last couple of years, I've kind of thought, you know what, we kind of need to change our thinking a little bit here and start thinking about what kinds of technology are out there that could be useful for people that are struggling with mental health or want to maintain their mental health. And there's kind of, there's a couple of underlying reasons this sort of sent me down this path. The first one is that we are consistently hearing, just in the general news that's out there, how the United States is in a bit of a mental health crisis. And crisis is usually the word that is put on after mental health. The second thing is that we know that people with disabilities are more likely to experience mental health issues than people without disabilities. So those were sort of two of the underpinnings that kind of sent me down this road and sort of put together this presentation today. So to give you some context on the two things that I just pointed out, first of all, mental illness is among the most common health conditions in the United States. And again, we've heard this post-COVID, it seems that it has gotten even more attention. But when we talk about folks with disabilities, just a little shy of 33% of adults with disabilities experience frequent mental distress, which is defined as 14 or more unhealthy days in the past 30 days. So that is a significant figure right there. That's half of a month, basically, for about 33% of the adults with disabilities where they are struggling in some capacity with their mental health. In terms of sort of broader, just looking across all people in the United States, 1 in 25 Americans live with a serious mental illness, and 1 in 5 Americans will experience mental illness in any given year. So again, that just sort of drives home the crisis in general, but also sort of helps us identify that maybe we need to start thinking a little bit more of how we can use technology to address some of these situations that people are facing. So if you move on to the next slide, one of the things I've always kind of had as a little bit of a pet peeve in the United States is the fact that we throw around a lot of terms and we don't necessarily always define those terms. And so when you start kind of going out there and doing research on this topic, you see mental wellness, you see mental health, and you see mental illness. And those terms can be all kind of put together in a big box and shaken out, but they all have very distinct meanings. And so I just want to kind of quickly set the stage a little bit here by talking through what each one of these is. And we'll start with mental health. So mental health is generally defined as a person's overall well-being. It's including how they think, how they feel, and how they behave. It's sort of a spectrum that can be positive or it can be negative, and it's an important element of our personal overall being as well. Mental wellness, on the other hand, is a little more specific in its definition, in the sense that we're talking about a person's degree of positivity or negativity, or generally their enthusiasm about life, including their ability to manage their feelings and their behaviors. And then mental illness is generally defined as has an effect on a person's ability to function over a long period of time. So overall, mental health is significant. It impacts us emotionally, psychologically, and socially. It affects how we think and how we feel. It determines how we handle stress, we relate to others, and make healthy choices. So, managing mental health is super important. But again, I think it's kind of important also that we sort of have a definition of what we mean when we talk about mental wellness versus mental health versus mental illness. So if we move on to the next slide, a little bit of a disclaimer here. The first disclaimer is I am not a medical professional. So I do not in any way, shape, or form have a great understanding of this whole mental wellness sphere. I'm assistive technology kind of guy. And also, I can't medically vet, or I haven't medically vetted any of these apps, though there are sources that you can go to that we'll share at the end that are sort of backing up certain apps, sort of based on medical research and findings and one thing and another. So, and then the third thing that I want to share as part of my disclaimer is that this is an adjunct to taking care of yourself. And so, if you are in any kind of mental distress, obviously, hopefully, you're taking advantage of working with a professional. Technology does not substitute for working with a professional if you are in some kind of mental distress. So let's move on to the next slide. All right, so at first blush, it doesn't necessarily look like there may be a relationship between assistive technology or technology in general and the issue of mental health. And so this slide is kind of sharing sort of a framework of how there is a relationship between the two. The types of technology that we're going to talk about today, they can help create support for someone's mental health. So it sort of forms a little bit of a framework on which they can work on things. They can use an adjunct to working with a professional, those types of things. And so it can also help address some of the underlying causes or issues that an individual is struggling with. And we will see that fleshed out a little bit more as we talk through some of the types of technology that are out there. A lot of these apps in particular can help people monitor moods, their feelings in certain situations. And so sort of collecting that information can help them then through this technology address some of the underlying issues. They can also, the apps and the technology we're going to talk about can also help reduce symptoms because people might become more aware or find better ways of coping as a result of using the technology. They can help with managing oneself and then also feeling in control, which is sometimes an issue. And they then finally, some other relationships include they help individuals work on self-care strategies and are most effective when and technology, just as sort of another disclaimer, is most effective though when symptoms are already managed. So again, this idea of work with a professional, these can be an adjunct to that, but they should not be relied on. So if somebody's in a fairly good space, they just want to maintain their mental wellness, work on some issues, then that's a good time to also be utilizing some of these technologies. So moving on to the next slide. One of the key components in the world of assistive technology is a concept called feature matching. And feature matching is trying to figure out what I need in the technology and compare it to what is out there. So if I need to do X, then I'm going to look for devices that have Y features in them. So kind of a general rule of thumb when you're looking for technology related to various types of mental wellness components or mental health issues is if I'm somebody who struggles with anxiety, then I'm going to look for something that helps, that we refer to as a soother or a comforter, something that is making the world a little more passive, a little more comfortable for me. If I am somebody who struggles with issues around agitation, I'm going to look for things that sort of disrupt my thinking, my negative thinking. And so we refer to those as distractors and disruptors. If memory is an issue, reminders and schedulers. If I'm somebody somebody that's taking risky behaviors, I'm going to look for features in these apps and these standalone devices that can help they can monitor me perhaps, or they provide me with guidance to keep myself safe. And if we're looking for more therapeutic types of outcomes through using technology, we want to look for devices and apps that have mood trackers or screeners in them, because that sort of accompanies or parallels some of the therapeutic activities that folks engage in. So if we move on to the next slide. There are lots and lots of options. Actually, I was a little bit surprised when I started going down this rabbit hole, the number of options that are out there. And this is one of those interesting areas where, in some respects, um, it gets a little bit clouded, or you have to look at it through a little bit different lens, because a fair number of the items that are out there are sort of sold for the general mainstream population. But if you dig down another layer, then you start to find things that are actually geared towards individuals with disabilities. So overall, technology solutions come in sort of two flavors. There's a handful of standalone devices that I think are tied, or are definitely tied, to improving individuals' mental health. But for the most part, the vast majority of solutions out there are going to be digital-based options. So apps and those software programs and those types of things that one is doing off of their phone or their tablet or their computer. And then if you look a little bit deeper out there and do a bit more research, we begin to discover that there are a number of mental issues out there that folks struggle with and know what they are. And if you dig a little further, you can find standalone and digital based options for mood disorders, for stress and anxiety, for sleep issues, for post-traumatic stress disorder. Though individuals that have OCD, there are some tools that are out there now that are geared towards helping that population. If I have a habit or an addiction, again, we're starting to see tools developed for more specific types of situations that individuals may encounter or be struggling with or hoping to maintain their health around. So let's move on to the next slide. And we're going to start by talking about mental health apps. And there are literally, if you go out there and just put it into the App Store, and you will discover thousands of these. And it's really hard to kind of begin to wrap your mind around what are all these different apps doing. And obviously some are better than others, and we want to highlight some of the better ones here as we talk along. But the mental health apps essentially divide themselves into four categories. There are what are referred to as meditation and mindfulness apps. And we'll look at examples of all these. And then there are mood tracking apps. There are what are referred to often as cognitive behavioral therapy apps. And then the fourth sort of category that a lot of these things fit under are what are referred to kind of collectively as anxiety and stress management apps. So just a couple of other sort of definitions here before we get much further down the road. And the first one is talking about meditation and mindfulness apps. Mindfulness, just as a reminder, is it's a technique that involves being aware of the present moment without judgment. It's a practice that can help people reduce stress, sleep better, cope with difficult situations, et cetera, et cetera. And it has become sort of a central area of a lot of mental wellness activities here over the last couple of years. And then the other thing that I wanted to make sure people had a working understanding of is the idea of cognitive behavioral therapy. And that is a type of psychotherapy that is commonly used. So that kind of mirrors what I said earlier about some of these apps can work in conjunction, or should be used in conjunction with therapists. And a lot of therapists use cognitive behavioral therapy in this day and age. And it's a type of psychotherapy that helps people manage mental health issues by changing how they think and behave. So again, lots of apps out there kind of divide themselves into these four categories. And so let's start down the road of exploring a few of these. So the first one we want to talk about, and I kind of picked this because it is one that we hear a lot of references to. It's common. It often gets suggested in the App Store and one thing and another. And this is an example of the mindfulness and meditation apps, and this is Calm. And so for those individuals who are trying to sleep better, sort of relieve stress, lower their anxiety, refocus their attention, Calm has a number of things built into it. They basically have this library of guided meditations. They have what are referred to as sleep stories that are these wonderfully produced stories that they encourage you to listen to because they're designed to help put somebody to sleep. There's a lot of breath work exercises in there, breath work for helping maintain or manage anxiety, keep one calm, et cetera, is sort of a foundational tool that a lot of folks use. Just a lot of different types of things that are in this library, but Calm is useful for folks that have stress issues, mood disorders, are having issues around sleep, and some other types of common things that people struggle with in this day and age. So let's move on to the next one, which is Mood Path. And this would be an example of a mood tracking app and maintaining or having some kind of way of tracking feelings, emotions, how an individual feels in different situations during different parts of the day is a really good strategy for identifying and understanding what a person's issues are, where they maybe begin to struggle. It's just data can be very, very important in helping one maintain their mental health. So Mood Path, it's an example of a mood tracking app. And its idea here is to help folks be able to track their emotional well-being and detect symptoms of depression and anxiety in particular. So you do these daily mood assessments, and you're asked a series of questions. And if you are actively engaging with the app as time goes on, it'll help you identify symptoms and manage and just kind of improve your overall feeling is sort of the intent. And a lot of really good self-care strategies that they suggest in this. So let's move on to the next example of something that's out there. And this is CBT Thought Record Diary. And this is, if I remember correctly, several of these apps I'm going to show are going to be fee-based ones. They'll let you play around with them for about 30 days, and then they want you to do a subscription. Calm would be an example of that. So they're worth playing around. But some of these I've also, keep in mind that there are also free options. And one of the things I've discovered is that the free options that have a lot of nice tools in them are not as highly pushed up the chain when you're digging around in the app store. So again, some resources I share at the end will be really useful, I think, for helping people find really good, really thorough, research-based apps for their particular condition that are free. And it almost seems to me it'd be a little bit of a cruel twist of fate that we charge for some of these things when they're designed to help us. You'd think it'd be logical and cost effective to make them free. But that's just Dave editorializing on a Wednesday afternoon. Okay, back to the slides. CBT Thought Record Diary. So CBT obviously stands for Cognitive Behavioral Therapy. So this is one that's tied to that mode of therapy that folks use. So it can, some of the things that ideally will come out of utilizing this is helping somebody be able to manage their negative thoughts and emotions based on using cognitive behavioral therapy. So it guides users through identifying and challenging and unhelpful thought patterns by encouraging them to record those situations and their emotions and their thoughts. And so it provides a variety of tools to reframe their negative thinking, track their mood changes, and also there's some educational content in there that's based on the cognitive behavioral therapy principles. So that's CBT Record Diary. Actually, these folks that produce this one have a really nice sort of collection. They have also some apps for more specific situations, like maybe OCD or people that have a tendency to do unsafe behaviors. So just a little FYI if somebody wants to go down a rabbit hole. If we move on to the next slide, this is Pacifica. And so Pacifica is an example of our fourth sort of type of app, which were the anxiety and stress management category. And so, as it says right there on the slide, I did overlook that. Again, a number of variety of tools and resources to help manage conditions. So it's again designed to help folks who are struggling with stress and anxiety and depression. A number of self-care techniques that it sort of utilizes, and it combines these tools again with tracking moods, guided meditations, breathing exercises, and then some practices that are based around, again, cognitive behavioral therapy. So it's there's also, and this is kind of interesting, and we see this a little bit more in as apps develop further. This is also an example of one where through this app I can sort of become part of a community. So other folks that are having some of the same struggles I am, you can actually connect with them through this app and some other apps. So that kind of peer support type of thing is sort of built into this app as well. So let's move on to the next slide. And this is the digital assistants and chatbots. And so a lot of discussion around AI lately over artificial intelligence. And those of us who have been around in the assistive technology world for a number of years, artificial intelligence is not necessarily new. It's just gotten shiny and big all of a sudden. And so we have seen some AI built into assistive technology, including these next two apps for several years now. And so this is Wiza, and it is a chatbot based on artificial intelligence. So it will react to the emotions that you express, and it's ideally for folks that need to work on relaxation, on their focus, maybe improve their sleep. And so the way it works is that I'm going to basically have a conversation with this chatbot. And then, based on evidence based techniques that are again based on cognitive behavioral therapy, it is going to make suggestions to me on how to handle that particular situation. And so it will guide me through a series of exercises, and it also sort of provides me with a safe space where I can talk to the app essentially about how I'm feeling, and it will then sort of again, like I said, walk through some appropriate ways of maybe handling that situation. And something else that's built into this is that if I am in a really bad space, then there is an ability to be connected with a local professional through WISA the way they built this platform. So it's a really interesting idea in a lot of respects. I can actively engage with it. I can essentially talk to it. I can express my emotions. It can actually kind of read, maybe where I am, and then it's going to just interact with me to hopefully put me back into a space that is more positive and more productive. Moving on to the next slide. This is Wobot. Again, this is built on artificial intelligence. It's sort of a digital assistant chatbot type of solution. So it offers support through engaging in conversational chat. So very similar to what we just saw with WISA. And so it's useful to help individuals identify and manage negative thought patterns again, as well as their anxiety and maybe stress. And I can do these daily check-ins with it. I can also do mood tracking, and there are a number of practical exercises that are built into this as well. Again, it also provides personalized guidance. One of the knocks on some of the other apps is that they're kind of, they're sort of trying to make a one size fits all scenario, but these artificial intelligence ones are a little more custom tailored based on what I am expressing and how they interact by using artificial intelligence. So let's move on to sort of another category of technology that we're seeing show up in the mental health space, and that is the use of both virtual reality and augmented reality. These are more than just tools for Meta and Mark Zuckerberg. These actually have lots of practical applications, and we're seeing it in the field of mental health. So the first one is virtual reality and the use of it for what they refer to as exposure therapy. So individuals that maybe have situations that are very stressful, that cause a lot of anxiety, maybe they have phobia, the way that, and you would do this in conjunction most likely with a healthcare professional, but they're going to the idea is to help people be able to face and lower their fears, but do it in a safe space. So perhaps in a doctor's office, utilizing the virtual reality. And so, in a sense, what they do is they present the situation at a low level. And as you are working on addressing it, they're going to kind of utilize images that are going to sort of increase a person's discomfort zone so that they eventually become more confident in addressing that situation. Sounds a little cruel on the surface, but if, again, do it with a professional and they're going to slowly use virtual reality to help you overcome various kinds of fears that you may be addressing. And so this is sort of a very interesting technology to keep an eye on. We also are seeing the use of augmented reality, which is kind of the flip side in some respects of virtual reality. And so through augmented reality, there's an app out there that I've seen a number of references to called Helium, Healium, creative spelling there. And it is designed to create calm environments to help an individual relax and then also engage in mindfulness. So, we're not ramping things up to help somebody address their fears. We're essentially using the augmented reality to help somebody just find themselves in a calm environment to help with relaxation and mindfulness. So it's kind of interesting, some of the things we're seeing going on in the virtual reality and then also the augmented reality space around mental health. So let's move on to the next slide. And this is assistive software for cognitive support. And the example that Angelina gave earlier, where they were showing the materials from Charting the Life course, I thought was great because these were worked in. And we don't think sometimes about cognitive issues that we generally kind of refer to as executive function and how they impact mental health. So, memory aids and reminders, they can significantly be a benefit for mental health because they help reduce the stress and the anxiety and the cognitive overload that a lot of individuals will feel, especially on a daily basis in a fast moving environment. So if I'm somebody that has depression or ADHD or dementia, then it could be super challenging for me to be able to remember tasks and appointments. And this leads to frustration. And as the frustration builds, there's a sense of overwhelm. And all of a sudden, my mental well being is being negatively impacted. So, tools like what we see up here with Brain HQ and Google Keep and some of the other tools, these are all just reminder apps and to-do list apps and calendar apps. But by utilizing these, people are decreasing the cognitive load. They're not holding on to everything. They have everything in front of them. They're not slowly ramping up their anxiety, or they don't have to be afraid if they're in a depressive disorder or depressive state that they're going to forget something. So these are really nice. Again, a lot of times we talk about them in terms of executive function disorders, but they are really useful tools also for folks that are having issues around their mental health. So let's move on to the next slide, which is wearable devices. And sometimes technology, and actually we have two examples of this, we sort of have gone through identifying things that you could use on your phone or on an iPad, or we'll look at some standalone devices. But we say this over and over again, I think, at Missouri Assistive Technology, and that is that a lot of times some options are right under our noses, and we fail to realize they are right under our noses. And so two examples of that are some wearable devices, the smartwatches and the fitness trackers in particular. So the fitness trackers increasingly, so your Apple Watch, your Garmin devices, your Fitbits, they are increasingly coming out of the box with a number of mental wellness features that are designed to promote emotional well-being and mindfulness. And so some of the features include, heart rate monitoring, which we think of being as an exercise thing, but your heart rate can also give you clues as to how stressed you are in a particular situation. There's sleep tracking. Sleep issues are a common problem for folks who are struggling with their mental health. It can also be a cause of mental health disorder. They can give me insight into my sleep quality and duration and some of that data we want to track. And and there are other things that are built in as well. It just kind of depends on if you're the type of device you're using. I know there's some breathing exercises built into some of these. So some of those key features, and again, we want to kind of find technology based on the features we need for our situation. So some of the key features that folks need to maybe practice mindful breathing, to take a pause, to keep track of their sleep, their exercise level, their heartbeat, might already be under our noses and form of the smartwatches and fitness trackers that are very common in this day and age. So let's move on to the next slide, which are wearable biofeedback devices. And these are, I wouldn't say that these are solid solutions at this stage of the game, but they are evolving fast. And I think that they will ultimately have some really cool ways that we can use them. And some of these are already available. And I have fiddled around with this one in particular, which is called the Muse. And so what it's doing, it's monitoring my psychological functions in real time, and it provides me with instant feedback. And it helps, so that is going to help me be able to manage sort of my state of mind. So the real feedback is brain activity, believe it or not. My heart rate, my breathing, and then the movement of my body. Am I moving around? Am I agitated, perhaps? And so I'm squirming, those types of things. And so through some magic of what they refer to as EEG, which I have looked this up a million times and I'm blanking on it, electro, blah, 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 something a gram, is kind of the underlying technology here. And so I put this band on, it pairs up with an app, and I am listening to something that's designed to be calm. Maybe it's like the sound of rain or something like that. And so, as it's measuring my brain waves, if I am not in the moment, if my brain is moving off to something other than just working on breathing deeply and listening to whatever the soundtrack is, it will actually alert me. And it does this in a subtle way. And so I've used this a couple of times, and I found it to be surprisingly good. It's a little unnerving when you think you are being mindful, yet it is interpreting that you are not. And when it catches you and you stop and you pause for a second, you're like, you're right. I was wandering off. I was no longer in the moment. I am not working on trying to be my best me right now. So it's a pretty cool idea. And I think we will see more of this as time goes on. We move on to the next slide, which is the heart match inner balance sensor. And I just kind of want to share this. Again, this is a technology that's sort of in its infancy, but it uses a sort of a different way of providing biofeedback to help users improve their emotional regulation and stress management. And in this case, it's using heart rate variability. It's the more I read up on this over time, the more I began to discover how much information your heart actually gives, not only about your body in general, but sort of where your mind is as well. And so by you hook that, it's an app-based thing, and then you'll see in the bottom right-hand side, there's a little attachment that you would put on your body. And so it's reading your heart rate, it's providing biofeedback in real time, and then it provides guidance based on what it's sensing. So again, fairly new idea, but I think it has applications. And honestly, as time goes on, right now it's sort of a standalone device. As time goes on, if this proves to have any value, I could see it definitely be the type of thing that starts to be worked into smartwatches and fitness trackers as well. So something to keep your mind on. Move over to the next slide, please. Another example of things that we have oftentimes right under our noses, but we don't think about using them for various situations or as assistive technology, are all the smart home devices, which increasingly are coming built in with ways that we can help create a calm environment by playing relaxing music, by giving us reminders. You know, we looked at some standalone reminder apps a minute ago, and a lot of these apps that we utilize use some kind of relaxing music. We have those right under our fingertips through the voice activated assistants. We can also get guided meditations. And then one of the other things that's really important in maintaining good mental health or mental wellness is the fact that staying connected with family and friends, which are things we can also do through a number of these smart home devices, in particular the voice activated ones. So let's move on to the next slide where we are going to look a little bit at one of my all-time favorite things, robotic support animals. And so just a couple of things I want to say about these. These really took off during the pandemic, and there are several of them out on the market. The Joy for All folks have cat and the dog and the bird and several other things. The Tombot people, and these all work somewhat similar in that they have sensors built in. They can be interactive based on sound, by motion, those types of things. But increasingly, as time goes on, we're starting to get good information as to how these are actually very useful to prevent loneliness and, in particular, to enhance people's mental well-being. So first of all, they provide some level of companionship and produce some kind of emotional response by the folks that have them. So companionship, these can help simulate or stimulate that, as well as the interacting with robotic pets can trigger calming responses. They reduce stress and anxiety, so there's a stress reduction element here. For folks that have social anxiety or autism, these robotic pets can oftentimes serve as sort of a low pressure way to practice social skills and foster emotional connections. So I always think that's interesting whenever I read something about that. The establishment of routine and the sense of responsibility through robotic pets can be really useful to have people stay on, who might be going through some type of situation, have something to do, have some kind of routine as opposed to just sort of soaking into the mattress or just sort of pulling away in general. And then there are a number, and again, more information comes out all the time about just the overall therapeutic benefits that are available around the robotic support animals. So very simple. The other sort of thing that I always think is really nice about these is that we know people who need some kind of something like this might be useful to have them connect with. But maybe they live, and we know that there's lots of positives of having pets, but they may live somewhere where they can't have pets or they can't take care of the pet. And so even with substituting the robotic support animal, you get a lot of those same results. It establishes a relationship. It makes it easier for them to have that emotional support that an animal gives without all the responsibilities. So let's move on to the next slide here and talk a little about therapy lamps. I had to educate myself kind of on all of this because I was a little unknowledgeable about therapy lamps. I had been familiar with them for a number of years. They essentially divide themselves into two categories, light therapy and sleep therapy. We'll dig a little deeper in each one of those here in a second. But the whole idea about therapy lamps or light therapy lamps are to assist, they assist with mental health primarily by providing either bright light exposure to help alleviate symptoms, or providing exposure to light to calm somebody down and lead them into hopefully a good night's worth of sleep. So the light therapy lamps, they mimic natural sunlight and increase serotonin. And these are things that you're going to want to use. To just kind of talk about the brightness, I said that they mimic sunlight. And for those that remember science from high school, they can emit a bright light that is up to around 10,000 lux. So just hold on to that for a minute because we'll see the reverse here when we talk about the sleep therapy lamps. And so by increasing and mimicking sunlight, what you're doing is you're helping to replicate the natural circadian rhythms, and it's also boosting serotonin levels. So I might take a light therapy light, and if I want to do this correctly, I'm going to use it for about 20 or 30 minutes in the morning, and it is going to hopefully increase my energy level and improve my mood. And so it's in particular suggested for folks who experience seasonal adjusted disorder, which begins to happen for individuals, especially around this time of the year as the days get shorter. Those folks that experience a lot of low energy, perhaps because of cognitive dissonance that they're experiencing, individuals that have significant mood fluctuations. These are all sort of the groups that the light therapy is often suggested for. On the other extreme are the sleep therapy. So I'm going to use these in the evening, and the idea here is to improve my sleep quality by helping me wind down at night and promoting a relaxing, solid sleep. So earlier I talked about 10,000 lux for the brightness. The flip side are here on the sleep therapy lights. So they're emitting a softer, dimmable light. So it's around 300 lux or less. So that's a very different way that they utilize light. And so that's going to gradually decrease in a way that is going to essentially mimic the way that the sun sets. And that is also, again, designed to help the body be able to regulate to sort of those natural rhythms that a lot of us have gotten out of whack with over the years, and that we all know are super important when it comes to maintaining our mental wellness. So if we move on to the next slide, we are at, oh, calmware. So this is kind of interesting, and I want to share this with everybody. There's a whole line of calmware clothing out there now, and we are probably, the vast majority of us are in some way, shape, or form familiar with weighted blankets and some of the other accessories that are out there. This whole idea is being built into clothing. And so what it is it's high quality sensory style compression garments essentially. And so those are very useful to help individuals who have ADHD, perhaps those who have autism and other types of sensory processing disorders or experience anxiety, by having these clothing that's providing me with this compression on my chest, on my arms, my head. They make a number of different types of pieces of clothing through this. I can have that impact pretty much anywhere that I go. So and they also it's I've spent some time with some of these some of the items in this clothing line. So they're super soft. They're really breathable fabrics that they utilize. And they are really actually pretty well designed. So it's certainly worth taking a gander at and exploring further. But I just thought that was pretty interesting, and I had not come across this before. That whole idea of this compression and the upside of having that sensory stimulation being worked into everyday clothing that enables somebody to have that good feedback, those good impacts of the weighted and compression wherever they are doing whatever they are. So kind of an interesting idea out there. So if we move on to the next slide, this should be, okay, these next two slides, as I said early on, lots and lots and lots of these types of technologies, these apps in particular that are coming out. And so it can be super overwhelming right out of the chute to figure out, which ones are legit, which ones maybe have been are evidence-based, based on best practices in psychology and psychiatry. And I stumbled across this thing called App Advisor that's put out by the American Psychiatric Association. It was an initiative they took on. I guess they got to be a little bit concerned about how these things were coming out and what kind of vetting was done behind them. And so at the bottom there, you will see a link to a part of their website that does reviews on these and also sort of helps identify which populations in particular might be best matched to a particular app. And so a resource to put in your toolbox, as is the next slide, which is a similar organization who has taken the time to go in and start to vet some of these apps and provide reviews and guidance. And that is a group called OneMind. And they have, well, actually two groups. It started off as two separate projects. The OneMind and Mind fused together to work on this. And so if you go to onemind.org, in the research section, you will see an app toolkit, which again is just sort of reviews and information to help you make solid choices based on some scientific principles around which apps might be most useful in your particular situation or for somebody you know. So that is all that I had to share with everybody today. This is, I think, oh, sorry, I forgot. I had one more slide in there. So just kind of overall, there's lots of great things going on out there. We don't always think about technology as a tool when we are helping folks who have issues around maintaining and improving their mental wellness. And so, we know now, based on some of these things that are coming out, that technology can have a positive impact on mental health. It can be part of a solution. Again, it's not a standalone device. It should be used in conjunction with professional assistance, but these are beginning to integrate into that practice through some of the tools they have built in. There are ways that I can become part of a community of folks that are like me through some of these apps. And so with these various types of mood tracking tools, or self-analysis tools. They're very useful for helping individuals who feel like they might be approaching a wave. They can see maybe things are beginning to go off the rails by sort of monitoring themselves, collecting that data, and then they can just kind of help me with self-management and my self-treatment. If I am just in a generally good place and I don't want to go back someplace negative, I can kind of keep utilizing these tools to make sure that I stay in a happy place. So I will stop there, and we have a few minutes for questions. If anybody has any questions, or even better, some reflections. If some folks have experience with any of these apps or want to throw out some other ones, that is part of this group, is to share. So I would certainly be open to hearing some other ideas.
For questions or reflections, you all should have access to the Q&A to put questions in there, or should have the ability to raise your hand and then I can unmute you. I will go through the closing slides as we're waiting for questions or reflections to come in, just to make sure we have time to get to those, but please feel free to either raise your hand or drop those in the Q&A. So as I had, let's see, I think we got a question. Yes, you will have access to the PowerPoint as well as the recording. The recording gets posted on the Charting the Life Course Nexus YouTube channel. I forgot to put the link to that in the chat, but as long as you search Charting the Life Course Nexus on YouTube, the whole channel comes up. There is a playlist for the tech ones as well as a playlist for the benefit ones. And then there will be a follow-up email as well where you will get that link and a PDF of the slide deck. So the benefit series, as I said, is the second Wednesday of every month from the same time, 12:30 to 1:30. The next one is going to be November 13th on Older American Act programs. And then the technology series, as always, is the fourth Wednesday of every month, which I should not have just said that there, because for November, we are moving it the week earlier to not be next to the holiday. So that's going to be on the third Wednesday, November 20th, on emergency alert devices. And then we have canceled December for both series. So after those, we will see you in January. And then let's see, we just got a couple more things here. Most of the Calmware is seamless and tagless, which is an added benefit. So that's awesome. People hadn't heard about the compression clothing before, so that was good. Somebody has used the Calm app before and found it very helpful. And then wanting to share personal experience that EMDR therapy was life-changing and highly recommend those who may benefit and to consider it for themselves, clients, and others. So there was that. And another person saying that the Calm app works well. So there we go. We've got quite a few people who have tried these out before, so that's good to hear. Good to hear that they're working well. We'll keep that open still. This again is Missouri Family to Family Disability and Health Resource Center that we host at Institute for Human Development. They have their Good Life groups, which can be found at mofamilytofamily.org. And then if you're interested in learning more about charting the life course, our website is lifecoursetools.org. There are access to all of the tools on there. You're able to download them. You can fill them in virtually. You can print them. There's also a couple free trainings on there, but there are paid ones that get more in depth with that. And we also have a question. If I go onto onemind.org, will it tell me which apps are free?
If memory serves, the answer to that is yes.
Okay. I think we're all caught up on questions. We have a thank you very much, David. You've given people resources to share with families. It's good. And I think that's it on, oh, let's see. Do you know of apps that may help individuals with Prader? I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of this, sorry. Prader-Willis syndrome?
Wow, that is a good question. I did not come across any that I can recall while I was sort of doing the research, but I'd be really David Baker, dbaker at mo-at.org. Send me an email, remind me of that, and I will be glad to look around. I like a good challenge.
I'm just going to make a note of that as well. I think there's more questions coming in as well. The emails are up on the screen, but again, David's email is dbaker@mo-at.org.
Just send all your questions to Angelina. She'll take care of them.
Or yes, you can email me as well. Mine is the reply to on all of the automated emails that you all get from being on the listserv. So I can connect you to David if you miss it. All right. We will be on for another minute or two if anybody has any more questions, but I do see quite a few people have hopped off. So thank you all for being on today. And we look forward to seeing you next time. And thank you, David.
All right.
Let's,
Thank you, everyone.
can you give an idea of when the link to the PowerPoint will be sent to us in an email? It usually takes about a week or so for those to be ready. So should be by next week.